Thank you for joining us for this time today about thinking about AI, the fall, and future hope. Our interviewee today is Reverend Charmaine Mhlanga, who we've known for a while at the Faraday Institute. She has spoken on AI for us a couple of times. This is a topic of interest for her. She is a pastor at a Baptist church in Luton. She also wears many hats. This is a very busy day for her. So thank you so much for coming along, for carving out the time, indeed moving a meeting so that you could be here. And we do appreciate that. Charmaine has, actually, I will not go into her background because it's part of the story. I'm hoping she'll tell us as we go on, but she has studied and written on AI, and as I've said, spoken for us on this topic before. And I will start by asking you, Charmaine, can you give us a sort of 60-second intro for those of us who are less familiar with AI? What
Mm.
is it?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Ruth. Once again, it's always such a blessing to be here, just to engage with a subject that is of much interest to me, and I'm sure to everybody that's gathered this afternoon. But yeah, essentially, it is a human-created tool made to make life easier for us using algorithms and data sets that have been inputted to do work that makes work easier for us as individuals. Yeah, but that's more than a minute.
It's all good.
That's
It's
a
all good.
Mhlanga.
And it
Yeah,
shows
yeah,
what a big topic this is.
it
And
is.
it's something with a lot of technical stuff involved. But can I ask, Charmaine,
Yeah, sure.
one of the reasons I wanted to get you along today was because your journey into being interested in AI is different to many of the people we interact with at Faraday
Mhm.
Institute. Can you share a little bit of your professional background and how you got into caring about, caring is the keyword,
Yeah.
caring about this topic from your perspective?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I trained at Spurgeon's College, my theology degree, and one of the semesters we were looking at contemporary issues in relation to our Christian faith. And so science and technology came up. So I had engaged with all matters of science within my first working life within the health and social care sector. And so coming into a theological college, training to be a church minister, and then looking at the things that are relevant to people today, questions that people in church would want to ask, but sometimes might shy away from asking. So I needed to be equipped at least with an intelligible knowledge to have a conversation with some of our church members, some of whom are scientists, some of whom are computer experts, some of whom have got no experience in science or in artificial intelligence or technology. So it's a way for myself to get equipped in terms of being relevant for our time and engaging in those topics that we know that people really need to want to ask about but sometimes might fear away. And also looking at how can we implement that and introduce it even in the sermons that we do share. So yeah, hence I think it's the relevance, especially for our time, for our generation. So I didn't want to be kind of like the ostrich with the head in the sand. Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. And it's such a great example to people. So coming in, a lot of our AI speakers have come from a tech background and are basically just geeks who think, are interested in AI, but to come in as someone who is used to looking after people and then wants to help people to engage, I think is incredible. And so in my discussions with people about AI over the last year or so, I've seen a range of responses from extreme caution and doubt that AI can help us to do anything useful beyond doing some simple tasks faster, to great excitement about its potential creativity, balanced by awareness of some risks. So first of all, I wonder whether you think that's fair. We've got the this is scary versus it's a bit of a balance. Um, and if you think the
Yeah.
analysis is correct, where do you sort of lie on that scale from, oh no, we need to largely avoid it through to no, we need to embrace it?
Yeah, sure. It is a great question. And I think most of the times our narratives are informed by the things that we engage with and the things that we watch. So with most of the people, you find that you engage with artificial intelligence by watching things like The Matrix or Lucy or Transcendent. So a lot of the cultural aspects and the things that we would engage with in social media would then tell us what artificial intelligence is. And more so sometimes, even with the movies that we watch, there is to some extent an exaggeration of what artificial intelligence can do. We know that artificial intelligence is limited at the moment. And so, one of the things that, for those of you who are online, if you want later on, depending whether you have a smartphone or not, or you've got Siri or whichever personal assistance that you use, one of the things that I did as a minister was to ask Bixie, and I said, Bixie, which is the app that I use, I said, Bixie, can you pray for me? And Bixie was like, I'm not able to do that at the moment. So, which means that as we are researching for questions that we want answered, that data is being collected, and there's somebody who's trying to improve technology to make sure that those questions that we ask are answered to some extent. So in terms of where I sit on the spectrum with regards to am I a total do I have a phobia of artificial intelligence, or am I a technophile that I love it to bits? I sit somewhere in the middle because I understand the advances that artificial intelligence has brought, especially to health, to security, to industry, to agriculture, to mining. So there have been great advances as a result of those technologies being developed. But we also know that on the opposite side, technology has been used for ill, for surveillance, and that surveillance then resulting in the injustices being perpetrated against particular people. So you find then that technology can be used for good, but it can also be used for ill. So there's still quite a lot of arguments really on and around whether technology is amoral or not. But what I try to engage with, and even when I have conversations with people, is that we need to understand the spirit behind the technology. So whoever is developing the systems, the tools, the processes, the artificial intelligence, automated gadgets, what is their purpose for creating the tools that they're creating? And as they're creating those tools, what are they reflecting on in terms from an ethical perspective? So I'm a church minister in Luton, and one of the things that we are starting to review now, which we hadn't done before post-COVID, is to ask when we're using particular systems, even within the media platforms and within church that does use artificial intelligence, we're asking more questions on, are we buying ethical software, ethical products, ethical technology that takes into consideration our humanity, that takes into consideration that reverential fear of God. So I think more than often I tend to reflect how the Amish tend to work with technology. So they just don't use technology for the sake of using it. They reflect on it. They ask the questions that need to be asked. Okay, it's something quick for us. We can get the information that we need. I mean, God forbid that people are bypassing the Holy Spirit and going to ChatGPT 4.0 to get a sermon on salvation or redemption or forgiveness. So it's looking at how are we using the technology that we have. So we have power as individuals to use it in a good way or to use it in not so good a way. But also sometimes there is hidden perspectives behind some of the things that we use. So we need to ask questions, and it's okay to ask questions, especially when we don't know. We don't want to be in a situation where we are assuming that we know when actually the technologies that we engage in with are being detrimental, especially to other human beings or indeed the planet that God has created for us.
Yeah, thank you. And what an amazing example to actually look at the software that the church is using, ask, is AI involved? And then ask, is it ethical? Now, the second question is tricky. The first question is probably fairly easy, and the second question is tricky, but it's an amazing start to be starting to ask those questions, and there
Mm,
will be resources online. There are a number of AI groups, and if you go to the AI Christian Partnership website, I think I will tell you the address later. They filter and review quite a lot of the groups and things that are out there that are doing things on AI and equipping churches to think about
mm.
AI. Charmaine, a lot of the focus and discussions about AI is about risks and benefits, but thinking about it from another angle, because we minister to the whole person here.
Mhm.
What things, when you encounter AI and its effects on society, bring you joy, and what things, when we're thinking about this, it's described as a revolution, that's happening and one of the
Yeah,
biggest impacts on society over the next few years. What things bring you joy and what things bring you sadness about that and the potentials of it?
yeah, it's quite interesting that when you look at the statistics in the UK, the prevalence of loneliness is on the increase. Um, and so people are living longer, which is a good thing, but then people are also quite lonely. So, with my experience in the care industry, where you find that now within care homes, they do have artificial intelligence and artificial intelligence powered systems in order for people to give commands about music that they want to listen to, or even have, to some extent, limited conversations. Because I think we live in a world now where we're very abrupt with one another, we're very short with each other. And you find that even when you speak to Siri or you speak to Alexa or you speak to Google Assist, you find then that there's almost like a demonstration within a response that the voice is calm. The voice appears to understand what you're saying. And if it doesn't understand what you're saying, it will ask you, "Oh, are you okay to repeat that?" Or "I'm not sure at the moment." And when you're looking at within the line of medicines, where you can engage with artificial intelligence to tell of your symptoms, what you're experiencing, and it can filter down on a couple of things. But again, it's to do with data that has been inputted into these AI systems that then it gleans from a wealth of data to then tell you what the situation is. So in terms of, I think the good side of artificial intelligence is those particular facilities that will reduce loneliness and that people can feel that they are engaging with even with robots. I mean, we watch again based on the movies that we watch. You've got different movies where you've got robots that are being created. They can converse with human beings. They appear to be more patient. They appear to be more kind. And I don't know if any of you has watched an advert of a gentleman who's due to go to the dentist in the morning. He's got a smart home and playing music. He's having breakfast. Everything is going well. And then he goes to the dentist and he comes back home. So his voice has changed. And then all of the smart systems in his house don't work and they do the total opposite of what he wants to happen. So I guess in a way you can look at that and go, okay, yeah, this doesn't work too well. I think where AI can be quite dangerous. We have had recent cases within the NHS where there was a glitch in the system, or rather, shall we call it as it is, there was a hacking of the blood services system that somebody was able to get into sensitive data for people and then were able to even publish some of that data as well. So it then starts to look at who has got the control, who has got the power. Even if we go into our banking sector now, we are a nation that are living longer, but it's not all of us who are tech savvy. So my grandmom, who could be in her 80s and 90s, still wants to have the ability to have cash, but she's being told you need to have an account and you need to use facial recognition on your smartphone. So they just, the other side of AI, that there's quite a lot of surveillance that tends to happen in our lives. And some of it we've almost like authorized that intrusion of artificial intelligence in the platforms that we engage in and in the information that we give. some of the information that we put like on social media platforms, we wouldn't necessarily give them to other people, but yet people know when we're on holiday, they know what we've had for lunch, and all that information is being collected. So there's that danger to say who is collecting the data that we're inputting about ourselves, and how then are they going to use that data? I do come from a country in Africa that has had a terrible regime, and that they use technology to actually enforce draconian measures if people do not conform. And one of the laws that they introduced is that if I posted anything on social media that was derogatory to the government, I can be arrested and be imprisoned because of freedom of speech. Whereas I think we're very fortunate in the United Kingdom that you can say what you want to say. And yeah, I guess to some extent they can be repercussions, but not jail sentences unless depending on what it is that you've said. So again, who holds the power, who holds the control of these AI systems does play a very pivotal role in how I sometimes fear some of the things. Just to give another quick example, if you travel to America now, America, they want to know what social media platforms you're on and all of them. And if you don't tell them and they find out that you are on a particular platform, they could actually reject your entry into the United States. So again, you're looking at that data gathering, and with the use of artificial intelligence systems that can go through thousands of information within a split second, they would be able to find out what people are doing and what people are not. And I think there has to be almost like a Sabbath from technology, where we feel that we can be free to live our lives and choose how our information is gathered, and indeed how our information is used.
Yeah, no, I've sat in that little room in immigration and watched people go through filtering, extra layer filtering, and if they have an online footprint and they share it with the immigration, and it's taken as evidence that they're a person who exists in that country and has a life and a job, and they're using that to screen them, which I really wasn't sure what to make of that. Can I also ask, so thinking back to having, Alexa or Siri or what have you in your room in a care home,
Mm,
I mean, presumably it's better than nothing. If there's no one in the room, it's better to have a machine to talk to, but presumably that's also a worry, if a family think, well, we've bought grandma Alexa, if we don't show up on Sunday, then, maybe she won't notice, So all of these things are such a massive, there's a massive payoff that, withdrawing human contact and not using machines to make up for human work and
mm.
human contact.
Yeah. No, definitely. It is true, isn't it, that a lot of people now say that they don't have enough time. I mean, just the fact that people could be here this afternoon is a sign of them honoring of their own time, and probably wanting to hear something that they know, or maybe glean from something that they were suspecting, or learn something totally new. But we know that compassion is a very rare commodity in some aspects, and compassion costs, time costs. So would you rather sit, hold hands with grandma and talk about the good old days and sing the good old songs, or Alexa can replace you by doing all of those things and still be patient enough to be there throughout the period of time, unless it runs out of electricity or there's a power cut, then there's a bit of an issue. And so how do we work out what our human responsibilities are in light of the technologies that we do use, if we're going to be a compassionate people?
Yeah, for sure. And I do worry sometimes that if innovation is technological almost entirely, possibly cheaper than human solutions, like saying, well, let's look at how many, the care home structure and how many people are working there and how much they get paid. And also other countries who have primary schools on the grounds of care homes where they can
Mhm.
interact with each other, and there's amazing,
Yeah.
I'm sure it has to be highly structured, but interaction between generations that is incredibly enriching. I mean, when
Mm.
I heard that, I thought, oh, that's amazing. Um, but probably very expensive. you know. So I do hope
Yeah.
that, yeah, I mean, so we're here from the church, and you've already given a whole number of ideas of how the average person in the pew, well, how the average church leader might respond.
Mm.
But what would you say to the average person in the pew? They've heard a bit about AI, they've got some ideas, they've thought about some of the sort of obvious things, but what would you say to them, particularly as Christians, about how they can
Mm.
respond?
I think language plays a very important part in um, our engagement with any subject matter. And so we know that each discipline, be it science, be it technology, be it agriculture, almost like wants to have a monopoly on words that are used to demonstrate or to give an example of something. So I would say to Christians, understand the context in which the language of artificial intelligence is used. The word in itself, artificial, helps you to understand that there is a, an unrealness to that particular kind of technology. So when we use words, what do we mean by saying it's artificial? And also, what do we mean by saying that it's artificial intelligence? So understand the terminology, engage in the conversations, and I think engage with it at entry level. Because when you start at the basic level of just understanding what is artificial, what is intelligence, then that gives you a better scope of things that you're doing. But also, additionally, we have to understand that as human beings, we're gifted with creativity that God has given us. But yet, the tools that we create are not short of faults, and they are imperfect, and they fail. So most of if you look at any of the artificial intelligence systems or technologies or products that are made, they're made in parts. And then if a part of that artificial intelligence breaks down, you're going to need to have to buy another part. So it's not losing sight of the creativity that God has given us because we're only manifesting our creator who himself creates. And so there's that good side of creating. So acknowledging that and engaging in that, and also engaging in the fact that we are created in the image of God, and that's a brilliant thing. But sometimes there's a danger in being created in the image of God that we ourselves want to create something in our own image as human beings. And so I guess that's where the danger starts to come in. And so even as I was saying earlier on, we also need to understand what is the spirit behind the creation of anything. And we know that it can be for good, it can be for ill, or it could have started from a good perspective. But we know all too often greed sets in, pride sets in. And so how do we as Christians combat those things? And I believe that as Christians, we have the best intelligence, and that's the Holy Spirit. So we've got Holy Spirit intelligence, which is just superb and great. So it's also acknowledging those side of things. Again, I think Christians, we must not shy away from having conversations with people who know this subject and know it really well. And which is one of the reasons why I just love Faraday stuff, because they have such an academic flair, but yet they have such a humility in the things that they do know. So for somebody who's a lay person, you don't feel like you're inadequate when you're having the conversations. So it's important not to shy away, even if we don't know a subject matter. Speak to somebody who knows it, engage with it, ask questions. Because if we ask questions, we'll then be informed more. But if we shy away and think, oh no, science is not for me, technology is not for me, this is, above my pay grade, some people might say, that's actually unhelpful. So the key to it is to engage, because if we're going to um, fulfill, I believe, the command that Jesus asks us to go into the world, we're going to have to use different tools to proclaim the gospel. And sometimes we find that we might have to use technology where you might not be able to physically get a person into a country given the laws that they might have against Christianity. And one of the Faraday courses that I attended, and there was a lady sharing about things that were happening in Korea, that robots were being used to teach Bible stories. And so they could engage and interact with the children. So there would be they would have the software downloaded and kind of like key questions that children will ask. And then the gospel was being shared by robots. And so already conversations are happening where maybe human beings can't be there physically. And you're thinking, well, you're not going to arrest the robot, are you? Not particularly. But if that was the person sharing their faith, sharing from the word of God, they would be imprisoned.
Wow, yeah, interesting. Such a lot to think about. And, that encouragement to engage and not dismiss ourselves, even if we don't feel very techy. And I think that cuts across the generations because all of us, whether we have children or grandchildren or not, if we're part of a church, we will interact with people younger than ourselves. And this affects young people
Mm.
so disproportionately. They're moving into and quote unquote studying to work in a world where this will be part of the furniture in the way that the internet became, as I was studying, became a thing. And how can we support and equip or encourage them in directions where they can learn to live out their lives of faith in a world that will be increasingly dominated by AI? Have you got any ideas of things that you've been doing?
So, one of the things that I've been reflecting on just through the periods of study and research is the poverty divide in technology itself. So you've got on one side of the page people who don't have any technology whatsoever. They cannot afford to have the technology, and so are having to rely on other people's gadgets. But you get, especially I think in the UK, once again, very blessed to know that there are organizations that will help young people to either loan out equipment or even to pay a small subsidy until they pay off for their laptops. A local school in Luton are doing that at the moment, that where families are struggling financially to get technology into the house. The parents pay a very small amount throughout the period of the year. So at the end of the term, then the children can have the laptops, and so they take the laptops home, and then they belong to them and things like that. So there's that aspect of it to do. And then the other side of it is that you do have people that are using technology that aren't able to keep up with the payments of the contracts that they have. So people are, we know genuinely that they're having to choose between food and electricity and gas. And so now you put technology in the mix. So again, an average smartphone, if you were to take out a contract for something that has got like 500 megabytes of access RAM and big storage space, you're looking at spending about £70 a month, but that's not to even add on the additionals that you will pay in terms of if you're not on direct debit. So a lot of people are also experiencing technology poverty through the contracts that they have. So if we're able to, as Christians, to speak into how contracts are ethically written out for technology, then we know that there can be a change to say that, as a country, we're looking at having that every household is going to have technology by a particular time. It means then that we have to be intentional about the contracts that are written, intentional about how we manage the service providers, because we know that in the industry of technology, more so in artificial intelligence, even our own governments are lagging behind in terms of implementing policies to ensure ethical practices, to ensure security, to ensure things like anti-bullying are happening. So I think if we can speak into that, and on a more practical, I think aspect about technology, the thing is that if you don't know where to find information, you're at a loss because information is knowledge and is power. So if people come, like for instance, you've got the Faraday Institute, you've got the different organizations that and deal in artificial intelligence and technology, it's about signposting people to where information is. We're not saying you need to know everything, but at least you need to know where to go. So if I had a sore tooth, I'd go to a dentist. If I was having problems with my eyes, I'd go to optician. Where do I go when I have problems with technology? And who can I speak to about those things? And again, I can't emphasize enough the importance of engaging with people in our homes, in our communities, in terms and in light of the technology and the advances that are happening. And probably lastly, I think that Christians need to be in spaces and places where decisions are being made with regards to technology and especially to artificial intelligence. So we need Christians as policymakers, we need Christians in government, we need Christians working for the organizations that are developing the tools. Better still, we need to have Christian companies that are developing some of these AI technologies, and they can serve as a beacon of light to say, this is how you could do things. So that's not being arrogant or proud, but it's just based on the fundamentals of who we say we follow as believers. And we know that if we follow the one who we say we do, that is Christ, we know that our approaches will be those of justice and equity and righteousness. So the technologies that we would develop would not entangle people, but rather give people the freedom to be the best that they can, especially when it comes to using technology.
Yes, yes, and such a good reminder that even before you get into things like how do we use AI? It's do you have access to the internet, which is pretty much essential for a lot of things these days. I think I support someone who has a difficult life, and a number of times I've had to contact the GP or make the call because the phone's been cut off, or the you know
Mm,
the internet form is too fiddly, or the Wi-Fi's been cut off, or something, and it's just if you're not happy with an online form, on many people accessing on a phone if you don't have a laptop, and if you're older and have got poor eyesight or fumbly fingers, then it is just almost impossible to access things.
mm,
Sometimes it is an internet portal or talk to the wall. It's like one or the other. Um, Gone are the days when you can walk into a shop in the high street and get your things sorted out. Although there are ways. So yeah, I think the church can advocate massively. And yeah, no, I had not thought enough about young people who may actually be struggling to access technology. I've put a
mm,
couple of websites up there. The Faraday Church's AI recommended resources, and also AIChristian.org, which is a partnership of Christian organizations and individuals who are helping the church to think about AI. The Faraday Institute is involved. It's a great portal to find out more about AI. Um, so we've used a lot of your time, Charmaine. I wonder if you've got 2 minutes just for us to say thank you, but also, can you share one practical thing you will be doing this week to address the issue of AI, either in your own life or your church?
yeah. So the last Sunday of each month is like our all age service. And so this week we're looking at artificial intelligence and just starting to have the conversations, because we found that that's been quite helpful with the church to then say, okay, what do you understand by artificial intelligence? And then just give people the word and then ask them to reflect that on scriptures that they know from a creation perspective, but also from a perspective of what do we need to watch out for. And the thing that we've been trying to encourage with our young people is the acronym THINK, that is it true, is it honest, is it inspired, is it necessary, is it kind? So when they are engaging with AI powered systems, we're trying to embed that acronym for them in terms of how we relate to one another. So that's a practical thing that we'll be doing. And I do use ChatGPT because I find that it can give me information quite quickly, but also to know that we do have the Holy Spirit and that we must never take them for granted. And regardless of the insights that we have, the information that's at our disposal, that should never replace the relationship that we have with Him. Given that, Jesus says to us, I'm not leaving you as orphans, but I'm going to leave you with a helper. And so, whatever we do, whatever technologies we have, we must never forget that we do have a creator who, yeah, excels all of those things, but yet has given us the creative ability to create things for the better of humanity.
Thank you so much, Charmaine, for your insight and your practical ideas. And who has done a service on AI? My goodness, what an inspiration to the rest of us. Let's all go away and plan an AI focus service, try and equip the church to think about this. So thank
Yeah,
you so much for your time. And
yeah.
we look forward to sharing the video of this with a wider audience in due course.